Hey, everybody. You know, I thought I'd talk about the thief in the cobbler. Now, I did an audio video where I compared what the season 3, Saturday AM season 3's staff is doing. I compared it to what this Garrett person is doing with the recobbled cuts that they've been doing over the past few years. And I can completely understand why this person's doing it. You know, they pretty much want to give the fans, they want to give animation fans and animation, people of all ages, of all generations, something that was meant to originally be. And I can understand that. Now, when you talk about the history of the thief and the cobbler, I mean, it's a history that, well, it's not the best of histories when it comes to making an animated film. I mean, quite frankly, Richard Williams was kind of on and off on the project. He had animators helping him, he had people helping him, but it was like on and off. It's like Richard Williams couldn't just find the time or the backing to really get it done when he wanted to. And it does, I guess, still hold the record of being the longest time of movies, it still holds the record of being the longest time of animated movie has ever had to be made. Now, I can understand how some people feel about that whole situation. When they look and they compare both what Miramax gave us and what kind of compare what Miramax gave us, or Miramax and Majestic Films gave all of us, in 1993 and 92, compared to what was originally meant to be, and compared to what this Garrett person is trying to show that Richard Williams had originally meant to make happen. I can see how some would favor the recobbled versions, but also what's surprising to me is a lot of people do favor the Miramax version, and I can see why people would favor the Miramax version. You see, Richard Williams originally intended for the Thief and the Cobbler recobbled cut, if you will, or the original. Basically, Richard Williams originally intended The Thief and the Cobbler almost to be an entirely silent animated film, where the only voice actors you had were Vincent Price, the one for the original voice of Princess Yum Yum, the original voice of King Nod and King One-Eyed, and that was about it. And the narrator, who at the end actually is the voice of Tack. And I could see where he was going with that. He just basically, what Richard Williams wanted to do was let the visuals speak for the story itself. Now, some people might say that some people might say that it may. Now, some people might argue and say that it would have worked, but then also there are some that say it wouldn't have. I mean, if people thought it was going to work in that manner, Miramax would have said, you know what, let's just piece together what we have, reanimate certain scenes, animate in some new scenes, and we'll just leave it the way Richard wanted it and see if it works. But no, they didn't do that. You know why? Because, of course, Miramax, being a division of Disney, followed the Disney-esque route. They basically realized that, hey, nowadays, people are more used to seeing animated films, especially these kind, like Thief and the Cobbler, as musical animated films. Musicals that people can sit back and enjoy. Now, some people have criticized that Thief and the Cobbler, the Miramax and Majestic Films versions, have both been half-assed. In other words, it's like, okay, they got them done. They got them done in a way that I guess is suitable and marketable, if you will. Fine, that's great, but it's not. But it's not the best. It's not the best animated film out there. Basically, they look at it and they realize there are certain things that just were out of place. But you got to realize at the time, 1993, 92, 93, 1992, 1993, not many people had internet. So not many people knew about the whole thing with Richard Williams. They didn't. True, according to Wikipedia and such, there were some specials and television programs that showed Richard Williams working on The Thief and the Cobbler, but nobody knew it was Thief and the Cobbler. Nobody did. Nobody would have known that until they pieced it together, years after its release. No one knew. So when one looks at it and they kind of compare what this Garrett individual is doing, this Garrett person is doing, and they compare it to the Miramax version, they're like, yeah, we appreciate, as an animation fan, you appreciate what this guy is doing and saying, yeah, that's great. It looks real good. But then again, on the other hand, you realize, well, yeah, it's great this Garrett person's doing this, but near silent films or animated films don't really do that well in animation unless the story's good. And there's going to be a lot of people that would beg to differ, because when you look in 2004, I went and saw Spirit. And most of that was told through narration of the horse, but the narration, it was there, but it was mostly through the visuals and the music that told the story, and that was something I enjoyed. And I'm not the only one. A lot of people enjoyed it. A lot of people did. But that's 2004. That was 2004. That was not 1993. See, like I said, the very late 80s to mid to late 90s were basically known as the Disney Renaissance age. And basically, you had studios within Disney, you had studios competing with Disney, and even Disney themselves that realized the best way to market an animated film was as a musical. That's how they knew. Again, like I was saying, that's how they knew that if they marketed, and just my opinion, just my thought process on this, probably that's how they knew that if they marketed back then Thief and the Cobbler as Richard Williams originally intended to, it wouldn't do as well as they would hope for. And believe it or not, Thief and Cobbler apparently didn't do as good as they were hoping for anyway. I mean, again though, one has to appreciate what this Garrett individual is doing, but one does have to look back and say, okay, what's more better? What's more entertaining? What's more satisfying? What's more, good? Is it what Richard Williams was wanting for a long time, which isn't bad in its own right? Or do we want something that we could actually sit down and enjoy and appreciate, even if it's not that good, or even if it wasn't that good at the box office, that we could sit down and appreciate and say, this isn't bad. And you gotta say to yourself, and you also gotta realize that despite the fact that the person that was put in charge of finishing, basically, completing this film and making it as it was, you got to give them credit for doing what they did. You got to give this individual credit for, reanimating certain scenes. You got to give this person credit for actually putting in some new scenes. You got to give this person credit for actually going out and getting some musical artists to do some singing. You know, and the songs, believe it or not, like It's So Amazing, that's not bad. It's actually pretty good. You know, so again, when you look at it, you can appreciate what this Garrett person is doing, and I do. I really appreciate what this guy's doing, trying to show you what it was originally meant to be. But on the other hand, you have to appreciate that what they did back then in 1992-93 is they said, look, we're going to do our best with the Miramax Majestic version that we're going to have come out and see how people receive it, see how people draw to it. And like I said, you got to give them credit for everything they did. You got to give them credit for getting the voice actors that they did. I mean, many people don't like Matthew Broderick, but he was okay. Jonathan Winters, the late Jonathan Winters, God rest his soul. To me, when you look back at this film with nostalgic feel, you have to say that Jonathan Winters, in a sense, did steal the show a little bit as the voiceover, as the voice thoughts of the thief. You got to give it that credit. You got to give credit where credit is due, which with the late Jonathan Winters, he did a pretty bang up job in a positive way. He did the best he could. They all did. So, again, on one hand, you can appreciate what this Garrett person's doing with his recobbled cuts, and I'm sure everybody does. There's a lot of fans that do, but you also have to appreciate that what Miramax did, what Miramax and Allied Films and Majestic Films did on short notice, and this individual who was put in charge of it did on short notice, you have to appreciate what they did and give them applause. Because they actually did do something that, believe it or not, people would rather watch more than some of the crap not some of the crap, but some of the stuff that's come out recently. Yeah, that's right. Some people would rather watch Thief and the Cobbler, the Miramax Majestic Films version, than what's been coming out recently in theaters, animated-wise, CGI or 2D or whatever. So again, one has to show that kind of appreciation whether you want to or not. But overall, I do recommend that you check out the recobbled cuts. You can find them on YouTube. Maybe you can find, if you're lucky enough to still do it, find downloadable links, if you will, for it. You could find the full-length recobbled cut. I don't know if it's Mark 3 or 2 on YouTube. The Mark 4 version is coming out this year, apparently. But also, while you watch and enjoy those, I highly recommend giving The Thief and the Cobbler, the Miramax Majestic Films versions, a chance and see exactly why people actually have started to grow with it and started to, look back on it with a nostalgic feel and started to really grow on it a little bit more, and how it started to grow on them. So again, I recommend checking out those recobbled cut versions, but I also suggest giving the Miramax Majestic Films version a chance as well, because to me, you got to give them credit where credit is due. They did the best they can on short notice. Now, as far as the coloring of Tack's skin in the movie, from what I have seen with the original version, if you will, and the Miramax Majestic Films version, the skin of his color going from white to pale, or from white to natural, if you will, whatever, that coloring mistake was done back then, I believe, back when it was originally being conceived. So it's not something that happened during the, re-edited, Miramax takeover, whatever. It wasn't something that was done when they were trying to get it ready for a 93 release on that short notice deal. It wasn't. It was done, I think, way before that. But anyway, again, I highly recommend checking both versions out, and more so giving the Miramax and Miramax Majestic Films version a chance, because I think, in a sense, when I look at it, it's really growing on me. I'm taking time to watch it. It's really growing on me. I've actually enjoyed it. They really know how. I mean, they really did a great job. There's no doubt about that. So, it's really worth taking time out and watching and giving a chance. And if you look back on it with a nostalgic feel, it will grow on you. And it's like they say in several Wikipedias, iTunes, and all that it's actually, this movie itself has actually obtained cult status. And they're talking not just about the Recobble cut, but more so the Miramax cut. So, again, I highly recommend checking both out, but more so give the Miramax and Majestic Films version a shot. I think you'll enjoy it. And that's all I have to say. God bless, take care, and I'm out. Comments are welcome, and so are video responses.